Hai, selamat petang. Such a very great day today sebab Emma dapat bersama-sama dengan Miss Heeran again. Okay, so topic today is something yang I've been talking about it with many of my girlfriends and suddenly this topic jadi macam boom. So today dengan Miss Heeran we are going to talk about mental health awareness. So actually Miss Heeran, at first thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
So can you please explain to me what is actually mental health awareness? What is mental health?
Mental health it encompasses so many things. It's such a big part of our lives. It covers everything from our psychological wellness to our social wellness, macam mana kita interaksi dengan orang lain, macam mana kita memproses information, macam mana kita membuat decisions, how we respond to life events and experiences, and it's something that happens from the time we are children all the way to adolescence, through adulthood, until we become elderlies. So it touches so many areas of our lives and throughout our lifespans.
Okay, so it means that no age gap. Anyone can.
Yes, mental health affects every one of us, regardless of where we are in our lives, regardless of our age. Yeah.
Okay, so that is something that normally we always talk about mental health when people have problems because sometimes people do not understand that they are having mental health awareness things, right? Okay, how about okay, should we check it from time to time or wait until the issues come out?
So I like to give the analogy of mental health is like dental health.
Dental health. So if like dental health, like every 6 months you have to follow up.
So yeah, not
Okay.
necessarily putting a number on it,
Okay.
but
Okay, so follow up.
it's just like dental health. We
Okay.
kita tak akan tunggu sampai gigi kita ada masalah, gusi kita ada masalah sebelum we go and check with the doctor, right? We make it a point to go every once in a while. More often than not, for the most of us, is about a year. Some people
Okay.
probably do it more frequently, 6 months, but more often than not, we go and see a doctor once, a dentist once a year, right?
Okay.
So just to go and check in that everything looks good. And if it so happens they detect an issue, okay, then they'll fix it. Same thing for mental health.
Okay.
Ideally, you should not wait for issues to crop up before you decide that you want to do something about it. Yeah, because it's a very common thing for most of us. You know, we're ordinary Malaysians, and we go through stresses every day,
Okay.
right? We all have anxieties, things we worry about. We're family people. So many of us are part of the sandwich generation. Kita ada parents, kita juga jaga anak-anak kita, we manage households, and then things that happen globally that affect us, cost of living goes up. But because mostly we are resilient people, we go from day to day, right? Without really thinking about it. It's just that we step up and we do what we need to do. But that does not mean that there are no issues underlying
Yeah.
the day-to-day functioning. It's just that we prioritize. So we prioritize the things that we need to do, but by doing that, it means we put our health on the back burner, right? So when you go in and check regularly with a mental health practitioner, you get to go over the usual things that you do, and then in the course of that conversation, you may become aware of some of the stresses that you've been dealing with, some of the anxieties that you've been experiencing, but you've put it away because you have more immediate things that you need to focus on. Yeah. So then it helps to bring those things that you have put away. It helps to bring those out, give them some priority. And with a skilled mental health practitioner, usually you'll be able to identify what are the things that may need some attention.
Okay.
Because when you speak to a mental health practitioner, you are in charge of the content. Apa cerita yang nak bagi tahu pada orang, pada therapist, content of the story itu terpulang kepada klien. You only share what you want to share.
Yeah.
The therapist makes a decision about the process.
Okay.
So the process is, okay, I hear you, I understand your story. Now, here are the options. Here's what you can do about it. Which way would you like to go? That's the process.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you have two people coming together, the client and the therapist coming together, then we have the content and the process together and make a good decision about which way you would like to go with it.
Okay.
And perhaps you may say to your therapist, I get that this is a concern, but I don't think I can prioritize this right now because I have a more immediate thing that's happening right now. I think I need to do that first. But once that's over, then I think I will need to come back and address this. So sometimes you make decisions like that too. You may not address it right away, but you are alerted that there is something there that needs to be addressed. And because you are alerted, you are aware, knowledge is power, then you come back and address it when you can.
Interesting, because normally I think, and if myself, I don't think I will realize that I'm having this problem. Is it normally kebiasaannya other people will notice something is wrong with you, or how can I identify myself that I'm in need of help for my mental health check? How is it, Mr. Rani?
For you to be aware that you need a mental health check, you will need to be more mindful about yourself. So there has to be some level of mindfulness.
Okay.
Why? Because, like I said earlier, pada hari-hari yang biasa, we just get up and we are with the get-go and we're like, okay, pop, here's what I need to do. You know, I need to get the kids to school. I need to get to the office. I need to figure out what's for dinner today. I need to make a grocery run.
Sounds like
right?
ordinary.
Sounds like every one of us,
everyone.
right? Yes. So, we just go through sometimes on autopilot,
Okay.
right? But we do what we need to do.
Yes.
So, for you to be aware that something may have changed, there has to be a level of mindfulness about yourself, some level of awareness about yourself. And I usually suggest to working moms, sometimes dads, although I don't see very many men, but working moms, I do say to them, if you can, just take, for example, a Saturday afternoon out, right? If you can, go out for a walk, go out for a drive, go for a drive to nowhere, or perhaps have something on Netflix. And in the course of that time that you tengah santai-santai tu, think about, has there been anything that's changed about the way you manage yourself? You manage your home, you manage your work, your children, your loved ones, your spouse. Has there been anything that has changed in how you're managing that? If you think there is, then that is an alert for you to think about what has changed for you to have changed. Right? But if it's yourself, yes, it requires a level of awareness. So the other question you had asked me was, or is it someone else may be alerted about it? That usually is the case. The people who live with you may point out to you that maybe you've been a bit shorter with your temper. Yeah. Maybe you've been flying off the handle a bit more,
Alright.
than you usually are.
Okay.
Maybe you had a longer fuse.
Alright.
And now there's but
longer view.
longer fuse.
Okay.
But so that's also another way. So I do say to the people that I work with,
Mm.
you may want to say to your family members that sometimes there is a blind spot with yourself. Maybe you tak boleh tangkap.
Yeah.
But if you guys notice something's a bit off, please let me know. Please alert. Jangan diam je. Tolong bagi tahu.
Pinpoint cakap,
Pinpoint.
mami or kakak ke abang, something is not right with your behaviour. You're not like usually yourself. Perhaps like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like you said, when we like trying to just follow our day-to-day routine, try to go on. Also, we did not realize something changed, but other person could realize. The one that live with us, our family members, perhaps our roommates, our housemates. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Is mental health even more vital for women compared to men?
It's important for both genders. But yes, it's absolutely vital for women
Why is that, Heeran?
because I think just by gender roles. So I'd just like to make a distinction. So when we say a person is of a certain sex, we're talking about biologically, it's very obvious that you are male and you are female. That's sex. When we talk about gender, gender is your roles that you play socially, the behaviors that you do on a day-to-day basis based on your the roles that are expected of you socially and in your family. So just by virtue of gender roles, women tend to carry a lot more and they have a lot more on their plates just because of social constructs.
Okay.
So because of that reason, we tend to do a whole lot more. And for that reason, it is essential, it is vital. I cannot stress how important it is that women's mental health is in check. Because if yours is affected, everyone else, by extension, in your social circle, in your family circle, in your social circle, is impacted by what's happening with you. I'm not saying that it's wholly only your responsibility. What I am saying is that that is the sphere of influence that we have. That's how wide it runs. That it has the potential of impacting other people, and therefore it is essential that we look after ourselves, our mental health.
Okay, take care of yourself. Okay, ladies?
Yes, ladies.
Love yourself, okay? Take time for yourself. Go for some relaxing time. Morning walk. Have a coffee with your friend. Okay. May I know actually how did your journey into mental health started? So, what made you be in this area?
Quite. Every time I'm asked that, I think about, okay, how far back do I go? Quite mental health. My journey into mental health. Okay, that wasn't accidental. That was actually by design.
Okay.
But perhaps I can take you a bit further back.
Yes, please.
So I was formerly a practicing lawyer, but I'm one of those people who did have a career change. I had 2 children, and I decided that I wanted to prioritize my children. And at that time, legal practice was not compatible with raising my children by myself. So I made a decision. I got into education. So I started working with children. So that's how I went into education. But because I was not trained, I was not a trained educator, I did along the way. I went back to my postgrad diploma. in special education.
Mm-hmm.
So I am trained and qualified to work with children on various spectrums
Okay.
like autism and dyslexia and
Mm.
attention deficit. So I'm trained to work with children in those areas. And as I worked with those children, then by extension I was also of course meeting with the families,
Okay.
meeting with their parents,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes grandparents, other caregivers. And then it became apparent to me that um, many families, the caregivers also had struggles,
Okay.
psychological difficulties that had cropped up. Regular families have issues. Children from families with difficulties have even
Yeah.
greater issues. And that's where itu boleh katakan the seed sprouted. you
Okay.
know Perhaps I should go and get trained because I was already working with giving psychological assistance
Mm.
on an informal basis anyway, just by extension of my work. So because of that, I thought, okay, let me go and get trained and qualified to work in the area of mental health to better support the children that I was working with and their families.
Okay.
But it is such an incredibly dynamic and diverse and wide area of work. Some of um, some of the ways that it has grown for me in my practice,
Mm-hmm.
even I hadn't envisaged. Even I tak boleh bayangkan masa I first start dulu that ada banyak susu galuh,
Yeah.
in this profession. There's so many areas that you can specialize in, that you have niche areas in. I could not possibly have imagined.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very alive. It's one of those lines of work that is very, dia memang kena pada masa, dan what's happening is very current. It will be reflected in your practice. Contohnya lah, just by default of me working with children, so I also then started working with teenagers and then adults because I was working with caregivers
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
But never had I really worked with the elderly.
Okay.
Never had I really worked with that group until COVID paid a visit.
Oh, okay.
So it was
Why is
during
that
the
so?
because that demography,
Okay.
the elderlies, were one of the populations that were the most impacted for several reasons, and that those things hadn't become apparent sebelum COVID, because I think kalau tak silap saya masa umur 60 kan, they said 60 was the cut off, right?
Yeah.
Kalau 60 and above, diorang tak boleh pergi ke, tak boleh bersocialize, tak boleh keluar pergi berjemaah, tak boleh ke masjid.
Yes.
We cannot, the Sikhs, we
Takut
couldn't.
cepat kena infection ke apa semua, jadi
Yes.
diorang kena duduk dekat dalam rumah je. Okay.
And the Sikhs, just like Muslims, are very communal.
Yes.
So we all berjemaah at the Gurdwara, and that's
Yes.
where the elderly aunties are, and they couldn't go and do that.
Yeah.
So they couldn't see their friends. So benda tu dilakukan pada masa tu to protect them, to make sure that diorang tak kena infeksi.
Yes.
Tapi the downside of it was that we saw a huge breakdown in their social structures.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then to make it worse, that is the demography yang technologically they are the ones that are the most backward because banyak technology diorang tak reti macam mana nak pakai, right?
Pakai kita Netflix ke apa semua tak. Memang
Yeah.
diorang memang bersocialize bila berjumpa dalam
Face to face.
kan. So now they can't do it. Dah lah tak pandai guna Facebook everything.
Yeah.
So they feel like very alone lah kan.
Yeah.
Kan? Okay, I've never thought of that because at least my parents knows what to do.
Yes.
Okay, this is another point of view yang
Yeah.
alright.
So that's what I saw during COVID.
Okay.
And ni kita dah lepas COVID about 2 years now that we are out of it, right? And you know what? I dah tak jumpa really with the elderly now.
They are back to their
Because they are back to doing their usual. There are of course mental health practitioners. There are therapists who are specific in dealing with the geriatric community. There are therapists who work in just that area, ada juga.
Okay.
So probably untuk dorang, dia masih jumpa with the elderly lah. Tapi for therapists like me who are with children and with adolescents and the adults, I don't see the elderly very much in my practice now, which I take as good news because maknanya dorang dah balik, they've gone back to their usual way of being lah. So mental practice is so dynamic, it's alive. What's happening out there will be reflected in my work, and that's what makes it so alive, so exciting. I'm excited every time I'm going to see a client. I'm excited. I'm doing work related to mental health. I'm excited. Yeah.
Passionate, excited, that is important. So that's how you can attend to your client, right? Okay. Oh. How can we improve our mental health? Wow. Yeah. How can we do that?
Through awareness.
Okay.
It is essential that um, we. So a big part of my work, besides, like I said, the process where I'm talking to you about this. This is a type of therapy. For example, for this issue we might use CBT, or I might use REBT.
Okay.
That is the modality. Cara untuk kita nak tangani masalah that the client is presenting.
Okay.
It's a modality. Sama lah juga, contohnya like to help our viewers understand. If you go in with a medical problem, you have the medical model. Doctor dia akan figure out what's the issue, and they'll try and figure out the symptoms, and then try and figure out from there what's the issue, and then they will treat you, right?
Okay.
So similarly with therapists, there are many different models to use, but we base our practice on the growth model. So we try to help our clients grow,
Okay.
right? So as part of that growth, it's very important that I give you information. And that part of work is called psychoeducation. So kalau ada education, yeah. So kalau ada dengar this term, psychoeducation, itulah maknanya. Maknanya I am educating you about the psychology that the information about psychology that is out there. Usually we come on that information through research. Banyak research lah. Even now, research is ongoing. So a big part of my work is giving psychoeducation, making clients aware that this is based on what you're telling me. This is some of the research that has been done, and based on this research, this is what it looks like you may be grappling with, right? Okay. So, but if you're looking for how to help yourself, because that was your question, how to be aware of by yourself. So, I say please read a lot. There's a lot of information out there. It's incredible. In fact, just before we started today, I was looking at mental health and women. One of the questions that Emma tanya tadi memang tepat. Because it was exactly why is mental health so vital for women. And there are so many organizations, hospitals, facilities that are constantly running research. And like certain conditions, for example, like let's say anxiety. Okay, anxiety, kerisauan, is something that every one of us has experienced. But women are twice as likely to experience anxiety compared to men. That's not because we are any weaker. It has nothing to do with you psychologically. It has a lot to do with you on a biochemical level. Because of hormonal differences. Because testosterone which men
Yeah.
ada lebih testosterone dalam
Yeah.
badan dia
Yeah.
compared to women. Women pun ada juga tapi kita
tak
kurang.
selevel macam lelaki.
So yeah, that's why kita tak ada facial hair dan we don't
Yeah.
have masculine features, right? Because the
Okay.
testosterone is more of it in men. But testosterone has been shown to have antidepressant qualities, anti-anxiety qualities. So men are better protected
Okay.
for depression, for anxiety because of their biological makeup. Because they have chemicals in their body that protect them versus women. So we are more vulnerable that way. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, but then when we do experience it, and then sometimes, of course, you have unkind comments coming your way. Kenapa lah kau macam ni? No. Kenapa kau tak boleh macam orang lain? Why, when you hear things like that, we freak out. We start thinking something is wrong with me. And I think one of the worst things that has happened sekarang is this, some of the words that are used macam without really thinking about it, like disorder.
Yeah.
So many people coming in use this word that I have a disorder. I have an anxiety disorder because they went and they may have read something.
Yeah.
And it looks like they've gone and ticked some of the boxes. And they think now they have a disorder. But a disorder is a very specific issue. We say someone has become disordered, orang tu ada disorder, kalau dia tidak boleh lagi berfungsi macam biasa. Most of us are not there.
Ni tapi sebab because from reading ke orang cakap dia, I tick that box, so they already just telling themselves, I have disorder.
A disorder.
Okay.
Yeah. And a disorder, besides orang tak boleh nak berfungsi macam biasa, there are specific ingredients that need to be fulfilled for something to be diagnosed as a condition. There are certain thresholds that need to be met for something to be called a disorder. Tapi kita tak sampai ke tahap tu. But because we are not well informed, which is why, like I said, going back to your question in the beginning, this is why it's vital to go and do a check with a therapist every once in a while. Because a skilled therapist will ask you, okay, hang on a minute. You just said, I have an anxiety disorder. What made you say that? They will check for the ingredients. Do you actually really meet the ingredients of an anxiety disorder? Do you really meet the threshold of a disorder? And so by extension, are you actually a disordered individual? Or are you just having certain specific events that are happening with your life right now that have just made you struggle? So is it a disorder or is it a struggle? They are not the same thing.
It's different, struggle or disorder?
Yes.
Interesting.
Can.
Okay. What triggers this actually? When you think that people say that they have mental health problems. So actually, what are the things that really could trigger this kind of thing?
You mean their thought process that
Yes.
there's something
Yeah.
wrong with them?
Correct.
It's because people are not well informed. It's because they don't know very much about something, and because they don't fully understand it, they don't understand it well. Satu, and then they've never checked in with a mental health practitioner. So their thought process is that something's wrong with me. Yeah. Just because we are on the topic, macam anxiety, for example, ataupun stress. These are two things that have got so much of bad press for a very long time. Bad press maknanya orang dengar je, and immediately there's this like a pullback that it's a bad thing. When you experience stress or experience anxiety, that's an indication of not there's something wrong with you, there's something right with you. Because a healthy, normal individual will respond to stress, will respond to anxiety. Tapi disebabkan respons itu has sudah benda tu dah dicaci untuk satu masa yang sangat lama.
Okay.
Ya, kita punya respons kepada anxiety. Kenapa lah kau ni? Kenapa kau asyik risau tu?
Okay.
Why you thinking all the time? Why are you talking about it all the time? Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and then one is the experience. The experience is very uncomfortable. The experience of responding to a stress situation or an anxiety situation is uncomfortable to start with,
Okay.
right? It is uncomfortable because kita akan rasa and different individuals will respond differently. Tapi biasanya kita akan rasa you tense up. Some people experience palpitation, dia punya heartbeat, jantung berdegup. Some people start to sweat. Some people, they may break down if it's a bit more overwhelming. Some people, so the experience can be very uncomfortable. That's the experience. What's happening with you internally. And then you have external factors coming in because you're being judged for responding the way you do. Right? Those responses are not normalized. If anything, they are stigmatized. Kenapa lah kau macam ni? So, kenapa kau tak boleh jadi macam so and so and so?
Being compared to other people yang orang lain nampak macam stable je. Okay.
But without taking into account so many things like support systems. Every person has different support systems. Every person's network is different. Every person's background and experiences are different. We often like to say things that are cliche. For example, one of the things that I came across, I think sometime last year was, everybody has the same 24 hours in a day, right? It's what you do with it, right? And I thought to myself, what an unkind thing to say. What an unkind way to look at something. Because let's get real. The 24 hours of a man who is a laborer, who has 7 children and lives in a shack, duduk kawasan Setinggan, ada anak 7 orang, and is a laborer, his 24 hours is very different to my 24 hours and your 24 hours.
Exactly.
Because we are in a more privileged position. So when you do this comparison, kenapalah kau tak boleh jadi macam so and so, you negate so many of those supporting factors that make us who we are and the way that we are. So then naturally we are also not going to respond the same way, right? So two things happening there. One's your own internal demons that you're dealing with, and then on top of that you have external judgments that you have to handle, right? So it makes people feel something's wrong with them, right? So one of the things to do is to start understanding normal human responses, right?
Okay.
I like to use this example because I did it. When masa I kecil dulu, I used to notice that if I was in the kitchen, for example, I accidentally broke a plate.
Okay.
I would freak out and seize up like that's it. So I'm so gonna get it, right?
Yeah.
But and then what's the first thing you do? Run.
Of course.
Right? Run.
As a kid.
As a kid, right? As the first thing you do. But as I grew up, I'm very curious. I banyak tanya soalan, and I couldn't understand that thought process because number one, it was accidental.
Yes.
No child akan deliberately ambil pinggan mangkuk and baling untuk nak pecahkan benda tu. So it's quite obvious benda tu is an accident. Itu satu. Second thing, it's just a thing, benda kan. But why do we freak out like that sampai kita we rasa scared kita nak lari. So when I became a mom, one of the first things I told my kids was that if ever you drop something, you're gonna feel like running, don't run.
Okay.
right? Because I'm not gonna scold you.
Okay.
I'm not gonna judge you because I know it's an accident. So because it was an accident, it's just a plate. It's just a thing we can replace it. What I can't replace is you, right?
Oh, okay.
So if you run, chances are you're going to step on whatever you broke. Think about it.
Yeah.
You
All the
accidentally
pieces
drop
of the
something.
glasses,
The
yeah.
pieces are all around you.
Yeah.
If you stand where you are, and if you wait for an adult to come and take you out of that
Yeah.
situation safely, we can clean it up without anyone hurting themselves. Versus if you have a child who has been raised thinking it's wrong to accidentally break something, the first thing they are going to do is run. And in the process of running, they may hurt themselves. Right? So, understanding why we are the way we are is very important, because when we have that knowledge, you can then change your responses. So, what I was trying to teach my children was to respond differently to how I was responding when I was a kid. But for that to happen, I have to highlight to them that this is why running is a bad idea. Right? Yeah. Another example, now this is something that's very susceptible for women. I think there are sometimes, I think unfairly juga it's pointed out, like, kenapa, why do we talk about women's issues all the time?
Yeah.
What is it
Ya,
about?
tak ada kata mari kita bercakap tentang man issue. Always woman's issue. Yes.
But because we are so much more vulnerable to what's happening out there as a gender.
Okay.
So this is not just for attention seeking purposes, because there are real reasons for why we need to have these conversations. And I think you can ask almost any woman. She will have a story to tell you about her experience having with sexual harassment in some form.
Okay.
Whether it's the most basic, being catcalled,
Yeah.
right? To, of course, the worst of perpetrators, where women have been sexually assaulted, right? I think there is no woman that I have met until today who did not have a story to tell
Yes.
about some perpetration that was done on them.
Of course.
Right? Kalau macam Emma pun, I'm sure ada experience in some form kan.
Yang apa ni, kalau yang paling biasa is in the modern world right now is orang kacau dalam DM lah. Kan, hi, you look so pretty, I want to be friend with you. That is, for me, is already a sexual harassment. Another part is pernah naik bas waktu as a student, orang duduk sebelah, a man letak tangan dia dekat perut kita. And then when I jerit, bas berhenti, he ran away. Dia turun dekat tengah-tengah highway tu. So that is one part of it. And waktu sekolah rendah, banyak kan, not satu. Jalan balik sekolah dengan kawan, selalu macam ada orang panggil dekat kereta, dia kata ada benda nak tanya, kita tengok dah, selalu dia buka seluar. It happened to me in front of my house. I dengan my schoolmate, kita orang jerit, and he drove away. And petang tu my parents bawa pergi Malay Polis lah buat report. So rupanya banyak kes dekat kawasan rumah. Ada this one guy, dia ada issues lah, mental issues. So that guy I think got caught lah.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah, that's good. So macam dia tunjuk kat semua budak-budak sekolah. I was I think around 10, 11. Yeah, so macam waktu tu terkejut. So, so many stories. So you might have your own
stories. Yeah. So it is not for attention seeking purposes. It is because we are that gender that is more vulnerable to things like that. I have had that experience dengan flasher yang macam Emma cerita tadi, just outside sekolah lagi. Datang outside sekolah. I remember masa tu, I think sekolah pagi, so I must have been about 15, 16 lah, mungkin tingkatan 3 ke 4. Dia pakai macam raincoat sahaja. And he is walking around. What? right? So that was that.
Yes, yes. I like I said, dia tunjuk. Kita macam blank.
Yeah.
What is happening? Terus jerit lari. Lepas tu dia pun drove away. So macam Miss Heeran kena.
I pernah kena
Oh my
masa berjalan ke
goodness.
sekolah. I remember that I was in form 6. Pakai
Okay.
baju sekolah je. Bukan nak katakan menjolok mata tu.
Yes,
Baju sekolah.
yes.
Oh, you know, and I was walking to the main road. Sebab jauh jugalah from
Yeah.
my home to the main road untuk nak
Uh-huh.
naik bus.
Uh-huh.
Masa tu dah naik public transport dah tak ada bus sekolah.
Okay.
So walking to ambil lah bus pagi-pagi. Kalau pukul 6 gelap lagi. This guy dia datang, dia tonton dia punya basikal and he just went past. I remember he just touched me and I froze. I froze. But and then almost in the next few seconds I had this rage, anger. So what I did was the only thing I had with me was my bag.
And what do you do?
I went after him and I hit him with my bag. I remember doing that. And you know, it just tells you that it is about power.
Yes.
Because he thought he could do it and get away with it.
Yes.
But when I fought back, mula-mula tu dia jatuh. He fell off. I mean, he wasn't on the bike, but the bike fell, and then he fell, and he stood up and he ran. He didn't even take his bicycle.
Wow.
So that was the coward that he was.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, I boleh touch and go.
Yeah, touch and go in a bad. Yeah.
My goodness.
In fact, I even pernah kena when as a mom. I remember one night, my daughter, my older girl she was only a baby, so I taken her out for a walk to put her to sleep.
Okay.
You know, and this guy was on a bike. This one, unfortunately, I couldn't do anything because I couldn't run. I had my baby with me, and he just swiped from the back, and sped off.
Oh
Right?
my goodness.
So talk to any woman, she has stories to tell you about what has happened to her. So sekarang when I talk to my daughters, again, like I said, it's about understanding the human response. Kita akan gugup because I think one of the most unkind things we tell our daughters is, or even our sons, why didn't you do anything?
Yes. Normally that's the first response.
Like as if they purposely don't want to do something. Because the normal human reaction to that is the freeze response. When you have the threat, a sense of threat, bila kita ada persepsi that there is a danger, kita akan sama ada fight, kita akan lawan, fright, kita takut, gugup. So these are the two things that usually will happen. So that perasaan to freeze is actually a normal reaction. But we make it sound like it's such a bad thing. So what we should do is take it a step further, normalize to our children that bila ada threat berlaku, bila kita ada persepsi ada bahaya, memang kita akan gugup. But okay, what's the next thing you do? Because it's about training your brain to respond. And that freeze should be followed by a next response. The next response is a trained response. Yang kita freeze tadi tu kita punya reaksi, itu secara automatic. The next part is a trained response. After you freeze, okay, what do you do next? So, run, scream for help, fight back if it's safe. So those are responses. Responses need to be taught to our children. Yeah.
Interesting.
And some of those responses need to be trained lah, which is why things like, you know, maybe kita hantar dia untuk martial arts, self-defense, things like that. So I hope that this is helping you, our viewers, to understand as well, to differentiate between reaksi and response. Yeah.
So there are so many things about mental health matters. Okay, yang kita orang sebut hari ni, boraan ni pun just might be sekelumit je kot.
Sekelumit sahaja.
But we try to reach out and make people understand that you can always try to understand more reach out when you feel you need, or perhaps the one that you love, you can see that they are changing. Something is bothering them.
That's
Kan?
right. That's right. Yeah.
So hopefully with our short session today, a little bit, maybe it could be, this could be like part one, right? There could be other topics that we can talk about into more around about mental health, right?
Maybe our viewers, you can tell us what
Yes.
you would like us to talk about.
That's what important. So we know what else we can try to discuss
Yeah.
and let it out, discuss more, jadi lebih ramai orang tahu. Thank you so much again for your time today, Miss Heeran. Hopefully to see you again for our next topic.
Thank you for having me. So this is, it so happens coincides with International Women's Day, and
Yes.
happy International Women's Day
Happy
to
International
all of
Day.
you.
Bye. Thanks.